Today's podcast is about the real costs of employing people. If you like the podcast and have been listening to a few now, you may want to think about joining the DCBN to have full access to the larger training library. What we cover briefly in the podcast is covered fully in the videos, and you are welcome to join them live as well to ask any specific questions. There are supporting documents, including terms and conditions and contracts, and you get to save money with the supplier discounts. But most importantly, you can get involved with the community and chat directly to Diane and I. And I don't know about you, Diane, but a few people have said, "Oh, you're real," because they've been listening to us. These podcasts are getting a lot of downloads now, and people chat to me and like, "I feel like I know you," and I'm like,
"Yeah, we hit over 1,000 downloads in August, didn't we?" So
yeah, we're hitting it. Considering we do it, and anyone that listens to this knows that we have fun while we're doing it, don't we? There are topics and we know what we're doing, but really we just kind of giggle around it a bit, don't we?
Yeah, we don't always know where the conversation's going to go, put it that way.
Could be anywhere. But today is about the real cost of employing people. So tell me more.
Yeah, so we've got a masterclass next week with Employment Law Specialist Peninsula. They've done lots of training webinars for us, which are all in our training library, all on different topics. They are so brilliant at supporting us and our membership. But they're doing a masterclass because there's been a change to the way we calculate holiday pay for employees that are on variable hours or 0 hours contracts. So we're doing a masterclass. It's all based on a legal case that went through, and it could cost employers hundreds and hundreds of pounds in back pay. So it's really serious. So we're doing a masterclass on it so we can make sure our members have got the most up-to-date information. But it kind of got me thinking with the cost of living crisis series, we kind of want to help you save money, but also sometimes it's about acknowledging what the costs are. So I thought we could have a chat about the real employment costs or the real costs of employing people, because certainly when I started my business and thought I'm going to employ people, I didn't actually necessarily realize some of the additional costs above what was expected, I suppose. So yes, I wanted to talk about that. So what are your experiences, Louise? When you first started employing, were you shocked at how much on top of the actual wage it costs?
No, I wasn't shocked because I kind of knew what I was letting myself in for. But we had this conversation. So on the awards recently, I was sat talking to the judges panel. And one of the things they said about becoming a good employer, particularly those, I'm going to just cover self-employed for a second. So when you look at minimum wage, and we're going to talk about over 25s here, the minimum wage is different to the real living wage, isn't it? And I think at the moment we're saying the national minimum wage, or they've changed the words though, haven't they? It's no longer national minimum wage. It's now moved to the real living wage, which outside London is £9.50 and inside London is £11.50. If I'm wrong, it's not far off that. But what you should expect, compared to self-employed people, they should be getting 20% more than that. So the reality of employed costs is that you're probably looking at a good 20% more than whatever you pay to be coming out in costs and benefits to them. So if you're doing £9.50, why do I keep doing math and not having a calculator?
We just like to hear you or watch you stumble around the numbers, Louise.
Yeah, so a £9.50 person with 20% is £11.40. Yeah. Now, if you're paying them more than that, and you probably will have to compete in this market, a £10 person is going to be costing you about £12. And they are hidden costs. It's not just holiday pay and sick. Yeah. But we are going to cover everything, aren't we?
Yeah. So there's holiday pay. Yeah, I think that's the one that most people don't forget. It's holiday pay. Sometimes they don't realise, whether bank holidays are included and things like that. And I know we've recently obviously had an extra bank holiday. We've had 2 this year, and sometimes people's employment contracts are not necessarily covering that off properly. But holiday pay is usually one that people are okay with. But obviously, if our team are earning over a certain amount, then there could be employers' national insurance costs. If they're off sick, then there could be statutory sick pay costs, maternity pay, pension contributions. Those are all the obvious ones that are there that are covered well by the 20%.
They are. I want to just talk to you about SSP because you will have found this. People are terrified that they'll employ someone and the next day they'll go off on long-term sick. And that is what prevents a lot of people from employing, is they're scared of what might happen.
Yeah. Their thoughts are, well, I'm going to have to pay, I think, is it £95 a week? No, neither of us know our numbers today. So we're going to have to pay that sick pay for 6 months. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I wouldn't. And most small businesses, especially, when you're starting out, but if you've only got a couple of members of staff, or even if you're a bigger business, to be honest, that is really, expensive.
Would you pay them on day 2, go off sick for 6 months?
Well, they're not necessarily entitled to it for starters. So it's bearing that in mind. They have to be earning over a certain amount. If they've literally just started, they're not going to have earned enough to be entitled to it anyway. So it needs to be budgeted for. You need to kind of have a bit of a slush fund, if you like, so that if you do have to pay out, but you also need to make sure your employment contracts are tight as well. So I know I'm pretty sure we both have in our employment contracts about being long-term sick and what point that kicks in, and whether you're able to lay somebody off on capability grounds. There are ways of mitigating the risk, put it that way.
Yeah, and this is why we cover this an awful lot, but we also then, for tricky questions or for contracts, we get support from Peninsula, don't we, from Stuart?
Yeah. And the great thing is Stuart is he's absolutely brilliant. He's so approachable for our members. So, our members have access to his mobile number, whether they are Peninsula clients or not, they can ring up. But he's also in... They do. He's also in our members only Facebook group, isn't he? And if an employment law question comes up, him or his associate Bryn will often answer employment law questions in there for us. So as well as the masterclasses and webinars, they're on hand, aren't they, to ask for free advice, really? So
what I would say is people don't do it, and they are wrongly employing people sometimes. But the reason they don't do it is because they are scared of the unexpected costs. And I don't know about you, but I don't find that any of the costs are unexpected.
No, I don't think they're unexpected, but sometimes they're not always accounted for. And I think that's perhaps not just employment costs. I think maybe it's a lot of the costs of doing business. People don't necessarily think of them as a cost. So yes, you've got the basics of employing. And like I said, that I think you're right, that 20% point is a good point in terms of if you want to assess how much an employee is going to cost you, stick 20% on and you won't be far wrong. But there are other things in there. Have you thought about travel time? It's a big thing, is travel time. We've talked about it on a previous podcast.
We're not explaining that again, are we?
We're not going to explain it again. But you do have to account for travel time in some way, whether it's by paying them a higher hourly rate or calculating it. But then there's mileages. Do you pay them to use their own vehicle, or do you provide vehicles? But there's always going to be a cost in there as well. Some companies don't pay a mileage allowance at all, and you don't have to by law, do you? But will people work for you if they're not going to have their petrol costs covered, especially right now?
So this is slightly off topic, as always. Cars are a really interesting one because a lot of us view success as a cleaning business owner by having a fleet of cars. And there's no doubt that a fleet of cars in your local town, the marketing is amazing for that. Yeah. But the cost of those cars, I've seen people whose businesses have gone under because of their fleet of cars. And sometimes it's a kudos thing. It's not the practicality. If your cleaning business isn't turning over enough, if you haven't costed this properly, it is enough to cripple your cleaning business. And that's quite upsetting. So if you've costed it properly, that's fine. But for most domestic cleaners, it's hard to have a fleet of cars.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be very aware. We've got to be very aware of all of the costs in your business. But something like a company car, usually you're going to be leasing them. That's a big long-term commitment for your business. So, yeah. But some of the other hidden costs are not necessarily as tangible as, SSP or travel time or mileages. How much does it cost for you to train a new team member? Yeah,
this is hard, isn't it? Because it's really hard, particularly when you're out and about cleaning, because I see people that go, I've had someone with me all day and my 2 or my 4 hour clean still took me 4 hours and there was 2 of us. So that's 8 hours and I've got to pay them. And the number of people that take on, I think if you're doing employed people, one of the benefits is you can train them, because trying to find experienced cleaners is near on impossible. It's really hard. So you can train them, but there is massive cost. So it's not just the cost of having double the people, it's then the costs associated with that as well, that actually, even as they're getting up to speed, it's your time. And, it is your time, really, isn't it? And then how do you hand work to them? And if they mess it up and you lose that customer because they're not trained, because you didn't spend the money to train them properly, or you lose them because you didn't support them properly in the first week or two, it's painful. There's nothing I hate more than knowing that we failed someone, and the cost of employing someone for 10 days, I'd probably lost money on employing them, and it's our fault they're gone.
Yeah, no, and I think, having a really good training system in place is so important. And I know, certainly, if I think back to my early days, they just worked alongside me. I tried really hard to tell them everything, but I would often forget things. And, because it was just me kind of trying to share my knowledge. And that can work, but it can only work so far. And there's a cost to that, which, as you said, is your time. And even now, when we have a new team member, we give all clients extra time free of charge.
Yeah.
So that's a physical cost that you can actually see. But then if we've got one of the senior members of the team training them, they get a training supplement. So all these things just add up and add up and add up. And this isn't always just when they first start either. What about 3 months down the line when you need to go and spend some time retraining them because maybe something's being missed? It's all time, isn't it? Which costs money.
Yeah, if they miss a bit, you've got to go back, fix the clean, train them, go through the awkwardness of it. It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
If I could have all experienced team members the whole time, my life would be easy, but that's not always the reality. We are almost recruitment companies.
Yeah. And the reality as well is, if they're experienced, how good is their experience in terms of, does it fit with your business? So you might have to untrain people as well as retrain them. So, it's great. I mean, we always love it when we get somebody that's worked in hotels, because they're going to have that attention to detail and the speed. Yeah. However, sometimes the practices in hotels is not how we would accept things being done in our business. So, we actually wash the sink before we polish it, for instance.
Spray and wipe.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it needs. Yeah. Quick, one spray and a wipe round with a dry cloth and it'll be perfect.
Yeah, and it might look nice, but, it's not quite what we're after. So, yeah, sometimes there's an element of untraining if they're experienced. But if they've done domestic cleaning, gone to people's houses, they've got over the worst bit, which is the travelling around, the using alarm codes, dealing with pets, greeting the customer. They're usually better at that bit, but we still sometimes have to train them how to clean.
They're the worst bit. That's my favourite bit. I'd happily drive around and deal with pets all day. But anyway.
Yeah, we would. But sometimes team members, they find it a bit daunting when they first start, don't they?
And business owners find this really demoralizing. It's the actual employing. You go through the training, you go through a month of working with this person, and then they don't work out and you're back to square one. And it's not that you've lost money a lot of the time, but it's just the opportunity cost. Why did I go through that much stress and that much extra pressure? And I've just introduced them to all my customers. And you can see why people find this so hard, can't you?
Yeah, but we said this so many times, recruitment and getting somebody that sticks, it's a numbers game.
I don't think it's just a numbers game. I think you can change the numbers. Well,
you can change your processes to make it better, but you've got to accept and take the emotion away and just accept that it might not work. Hopefully it works quicker than a month, or, quicker than a month, whether they're going to work out or not.
And this is the other thing that I've learned along the way, is you probably got exactly the same. So I've been doing interviews all of this week, and there are people that would potentially be good at the job. But I was interviewing one particular girl. She was absolutely lovely, but I showed her how to clean a bathroom, and we colour code cloths. And she was supposed to use red cloths, and she cleaned the whole bathroom with red cloths and a red spray. And I'm not going to worry about telling you guys what's in them all. And I said, right, brilliant, well done. We checked over it. It was lovely, checked everything. And then I said, right, next bathroom, second bathroom in the same house. And I went in 2 minutes later, and she was there polishing away or cleaning away with her blue cloth. And I was like, why are you using a blue cloth? That is not for the bathroom. Now, it's not a major problem because all our cloths are clean and they go straight in the dirty bag. So from a cross-contamination point of view, it doesn't bother me. But what I'm looking for, and this was on a trial day, is actually is this person taking on board what I'm saying? Now, with this particular person, there are a few examples like that where I trained her to do something. It was fairly simple. She got it wrong. And if I had, which I don't at the moment, I'm doing all the training and I'm training a training manager. If I had a training manager in place, I would have the time and the patience and the setup to train her properly. And it would probably take me 8 to 10 days. I don't have that. I need them up to speed in 3 to 4, and she just will not hit it. And so understanding what you can do and what you can't do, unfortunately, she will not get offered the job at this stage. In 4 weeks' time, if she interviewed me, she probably would get the job. But it's kind of understanding where you're at and what you can actually give to the business as well, because I can't lump those costs right now. I can't lump the costs. I know that if I don't stay with her for 8 to 10 days, she will leave, and I can't take that risk.
Yeah, it's difficult. And you do see people taking people on, and then, well, I've sent them out to my customer, they worked with me yesterday and now they've gone out on their own. And it's like, have you put in the time? Can you put in the time? It's a really important question to ask yourself before you take anybody on, really.
Yeah, can you do it? And in this case, in this situation right now, I can't give the time.
Yeah, as I say, somebody that's sort of maybe starting out, maybe, maybe it's their first employee or their first couple of employees, they're going to probably still be out cleaning. So they've got to bear that in mind. I made this mistake in my business. I would send people out more or less straight away without me. And I learned really quickly that doesn't work. They have to be working with somebody. Even if they've got experience, you can't expect them to just go out into people's homes and not make big mistakes.
And that's where you get an agency. If somebody wants, I'm not saying they're inexperienced cleaners, because they're not. They are experienced cleaners. But if they want to sort of work with them and learn from scratch, then that's where you go to an agency. And that's quite different to the employed model, isn't it?
Yeah, well, with an agency, the client has an element of managing the cleaner. They can work together to get the service right. But when it's a managed service like ours, we're the ones that have to manage the service. We have to make sure that the client's expectations are met, that our team are well trained, that they've got good customer service skills. There's so much to it that, yeah, training is an expensive thing, but it's not necessarily something people factor in when they're looking at growing. And it eats into your profits. So all of a sudden you're thinking, well, why have I taken these 2 people on? Now I'm making less money than I was making when I was on my own.
And how many conversations have you had like that? People are shocked. I've got a team of 5, and I don't make £1,000 a month. Yet I'm cleaning the full time, and I should be making £1,000 a month. And then you go into it in detail, and I'm like, you're losing money. You would be better getting rid of all of your team. And they're like, I can't do that. And I'm going, then you're going to have to do something about these prices or the way you're working, because people really do lose money. 2 years ago, pre-COVID, you were looking at a minimum of a £15 charge before taking on a team. And I had it yesterday. Somebody said, I want to grow my team. I charge £15 an hour, and that's the maximum I can charge in this area. I was like, don't take on a team. It is that simple. You really need to be charging a minimum of £18 an hour, because if you are only making £1, maybe £2 an hour off a member of staff, I can promise it isn't worth the hassle. It absolutely, you will at best break even. If you think you're making £1, you won't be making £1.
No, it will eat your enthusiasm. It will just, it will take everything that you've put into the business and just take it from you. You won't love it anymore if that's where you're at. So it's we keep saying it, but it's the truth. We can't share anything with you other than the truth.
And I think what I see is people where they work so hard in the cleaning industry, so hard, and there are small profit margins, but you don't have to accept that it's small profit margins. If the business model does not make sense on paper, and you aren't charging £18 an hour at the moment as a minimum, then it's not a business. Go do something else, or work on your own.
Or stay solo. Yeah, absolutely.
Stay solo. You'll make loads of money staying solo. Put your prices right up and stay solo. I don't understand why everybody is desperate to grow a team. I think it's kudos. I think it's vanity sometimes. Growing a team does not mean you are good at your job. You're good at your job when your customers love you and you've got a really good business. Growing a team isn't the solution. Always.
Been very negative on this podcast here.
Yeah, I think what I see is a lot of phenomenal businesses, but what we see is a lot of cleaners that accidentally start employing.
Yeah, and it's difficult. And I suppose that sort of often, you talked about a bit at the beginning, that they don't want to employ because they're scared of the costs. Well, you've got to start with, your profit margins, haven't you? The solution is not to get self-employed. The solution to not making much money is not to use self-employed contractors. Trust me on that, because you'll have to pay them just as much as the employed ones and you'll have less control. It doesn't mean it's not a good thing to do. It doesn't mean you can't use self-employed contractors, but it's not always a solution to a non-profitable business.
Yeah, the solution is look at your business, look at your prices, look at your management skills, look at all of that before you decide that actually what's going to make a difference is the contract in which I'm employing people. That's not the solution. No. It's you. It's you, Diane. You are the problem.
It's my fault. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So talking about my fault, let's talk about breakages, because, that can cost your business. What do you have in place to cover you for breakages? Yes, we all, hopefully you've got insurance, but that's not going to cover for a £10 ornament that's just been knocked over. What do you do about it? These things can really add up.
So we've never actually claimed on insurance. I say that, so I want to do something now. We've never actually claimed because I think our excess is something stupid like £200. And every claim has been under £200, even new shower screens, which has happened, new walls going through plaster, but we've done all kinds of things. But anyway, most of them are £10, £20. Most of them, I've got to say, customers aren't really too fast. But they do add up, don't they? And I think sometimes there's a lot of cleaning companies that almost bank on the goodwill of customers not claiming. So they don't always offer. And then some cleaning companies offer too much. And they're like, oh, yes, that might have been me. I'll replace your carpet. No, it might not have been you. So breakages, it's a real big topic, isn't it? Should you take responsibility? Should you not?
It is, and I know, in my business terms and conditions, we have that actually any breakages that are not us having damaged something by cleaning it, if that makes sense, are actually not covered on our insurance below £250. That's in our terms. However, we often take it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, so I have this in mind. I will not cover faulty fixtures and fittings.
Definitely not.
If it is a faulty fixture or fitting, even if, so we had a shelf above a sink which had a heavy toothbrush pot or something, the shelf broke, didn't damage anything, but the heavy stone toothbrush pot chipped the sink. Well, that's not my fault. I didn't. No. That's not negligence. And there were about 20 other chips where it dropped before. So I think, is it you or someone else that has in their terms and conditions, they will not replace an item under £50 because that is wear and tear. That is what happens with cleaning sometimes. And so the first £50 needs to be covered by the customer. That puts off a lot of claims.
That's a good policy. That's a good policy to have in place, because and I say this to clients, potential clients, when we're doing the sales appointments, is, we are going to move pretty much everything in your house at some point. So things might get broken. So if you've got something that's priceless, can't be replaced, please put it out of way, put it in a cupboard. But also that, you have to accept that you break things if you move them. It might happen.
Yeah, we're not going to cover absolutely everything. So terms and conditions, and how many people don't have terms and conditions? Just put them in so that when you break something, and you will break something, you just know what to do. You know what you're going to cover, what you're not going to cover, what the process is. It takes all the stress out of it. Now, we don't break a lot, but I think there's been about 3 this month.
It just happens, doesn't it? It's one of those things. And, the bigger your team, the more breakages you're going to have. It's a bit like the more clients you have, the more potential complaints or niggles you're going to have. It's just numbers again, isn't it?
Feedback, Diane.
Feedback, yes, absolutely. And, it's just a case of knowing how you're going to manage it and dealing with it in advance with the client, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I explain this to every single new person. You will break something. So we've
don't panic.
We've just done retraining this week with our staff about breakages. So we accept that they break it. We cover absolutely everything. That's fine. But if they don't notify, that causes us such a loss of trust. And it's that loss of trust that causes more damage. Nobody really cares about the breakage. They just accept it's part of the job and we'll sort it out. That's why they pay more to have us. That's fine. But if it's not reported, that gets us cancellations, and that's painful.
Completely agree. And that's one of the reasons why we would never penalise a staff member for breaking something, because it encourages them to hide it. If they think they're going to have to pay for this item, they're going to hide it. And all of a sudden the client 2 weeks later finds a broken ornament behind a curtain, or worse, finds it in the bin. And we have a thing as well, which you're right, they have to report it to us, but they also have to leave a little note for the client with the item. They don't throw it away because it might be important. So it's not up to us to judge whether that toothbrush cup should be thrown away when it's broken. So, yeah, we leave the item with a little note, and they inform the office as well, so everybody knows. And usually nothing else is ever heard, but at least we're prepared.
And we drop them an email and they say, oh, don't worry, but the option is there. Most of them, they're negligible little things, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And what about re-cleans then? How do you manage those? Because, staff member goes and does 3 hours cleaning, you get a complaint and you're like, okay, we'll come back if that's your policy. How do you do that? Do you go back? Do you send the team member back? Do you pay them again? What do you do?
So everybody gets paid. Like if you go back and re-clean, whoever does it has to get paid. This is me. I don't even know how I get paid. But anyway, my policy would be no quibble. We are a high-end cleaning company, so there would be no quibbles. If they complain about something, regardless of what it is, I wouldn't re-clean the entire thing.
No.
I would send one of my quality managers or myself, and what we would do would be to check the entire thing. And we would re-clean whatever specific thing. So if it was skirting boards, if there was my plug hole hasn't been cleaned, they haven't pulled the plug out, whatever they complained about, or there's a hair on my bathroom mat, I don't know, there's all kinds of weird and wonderful things. We'd go sort it out. We would also do a full check of the entire house, and then we'd speak to the staff. So it sometimes is a retraining issue. More often than not, I've got to say, if we get a complaint, it's because they've had 3 hours to clean the house, and really the house needs 3.5, 4 hours. And so I go back to the client and I say, look, the girls are doing a really good job, and it is not down to laziness that they have missed whatever is important to you, but your house cannot be done in the time. Now, what they're having to do is make choices about what to leave. And on this particular occasion, you don't agree with their choice. What I would really, really like to do is for you to make the choices. Now, we can do that by either leaving a whole room off, or we don't do the fronts of kitchen cupboards or something like that. I would really like to empower you to make the choice. So what is it you would like them to leave to ensure that we can get the quality on the bit we've missed? So we'll take the hit, but we don't take that hit very much. It doesn't happen multiple times.
Yeah, it's taking the hit and then managing their future expectations at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes if the staff member is just useless, we'll take the hit, we'll retrain. That only happens a couple of times, and then that staff member is dealt with. However they're dealt with, I don't know. All of our staff members are capable of doing excellent cleans. If they don't do an excellent clean, what's the reason behind it?
Yeah. Is it, like you said, because they haven't got enough time, or is there something else going on? We're human beings at the end of the day, and we always say this to clients, and we ask for feedback after every single clean. So we have a system that does that for us. And we say the reason we ask for that is because we know that we're human. If we miss something, we'd rather know about it so that we can fix it. Equally, obviously, it brings in lots and lots of positive feedback, which is lovely for the team, and we reward them accordingly. But that constructive feedback is really important because, we might miss something. It just is what it is, but we can't be expected to be 100% every single minute of every single day.
But I've got to say, I don't know if you find this, because sometimes, because we, like you, actively encourage feedback, they'll feedback and say, I wasn't happy with the bathroom floor or whatever. And what actually happens is we would always offer to go back and fix it. And they say, no, just make sure it's done next time. So probably 80%, there isn't a fix. We'll offer it, but 9, or we'll say, something like, okay, I'm really sorry, to apologise, we'll add extra time and clean your windows. Or I would rather do something like that. A re-clean is very rarely necessary. Yeah,
I agree. And I think the re-clean for us is the last resort, because it's, for us as a business, it's the most expensive option, is to send somebody out to re-clean. But what we could do is we could add 15 minutes to their next clean, for instance, if we felt that it was needed. Or like you said, sometimes the client just wants to know you won't miss it next time.
I think a re-clean is less expensive than a discount. So if they were really unhappy, I'd rather do a re-clean, because even if we pretty much did the entire clean again, which has never happened. But if we did the whole clean again, then that's almost the same as a 50% discount anyway. But if you re-clean, then that customer knows you're going to go above and beyond. Offering a discount is sort of, it's a bit like it's like giving someone a voucher. It's like, I don't really know you, I don't really care, here's a voucher, just have it.
Yeah, no, we would never discount the clean. Never.
You have a no discount policy? Yeah, we have, but we would have to be at fault, and we have been.
It would have to be something that we were like, it was nothing to do with us, or it was nothing to do with the client's expectations, that it was, something that we literally missed the kitchen or something like that.
Yeah, that's an awkward phone call, isn't it? Your cleaner's missed the kitchen. Yeah. What do you want me to say? Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I don't think a cleaner's ever missed a kitchen, but they have missed rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, they didn't realise that room was there or something like that.
We had this. We did a 17-hour clean, 6 bathrooms, a beautiful house, a lovely big 6-bedroom house, 6 bathrooms. And we got a phone call, you missed a bathroom. I was like, how? And they were like, oh, it was the downstairs toilet under the second set of stairs. I was like, what do you want me to do? I was like, come on here. And they were like, well, I'm having a party tonight. And I'm like, it's an under the stairs toilet. You've got 5 others.
Have you ever had one of those bathrooms that it's hidden through the wardrobe?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, or when we have a lot of basements around us. Do you have basements?
No.
So we get a lot of basements, and they hide rooms in basements, and you think it's a cupboard, and it's like, why didn't you do my 3rd utility room? Because I didn't know it was a 3rd utility room. How was I to know? Or the other one that gets me, actually, this isn't discussed ever. On end of tenancies, do you ever get asked to do, where they keep gas and electricity boxes?
Oh, yeah, the meter cupboard, yeah.
Clean inside the meter cupboard. I don't. Do you clean the meter cupboard?
We'd usually vacuum it, but that'd be it, yeah.
But do you have them like ours, where it's like a box, quite often next to the door in a terrace house?
Yeah. It's sometimes next to the fireplace, aren't they? So, yeah.
I mean, vacuum.
No, generally. No.
No.
I suppose the only other sort of costs that, really, that they often get factored in, but they can hurt you, are uniforms. We have uniforms and they're expensive.
Yeah. So do you have this? So we have uniforms, then we have tunics. I've sometimes worn it on some of these podcasts, but we got tunics and they're fitted. I'm gesturing. You can't really see that I'm gesturing. They're fitted. And they're buttoned, and they have a bit of give in the back, and you can move your arms. And if you have the right size on, they're brilliant. They're wonderful. I love tunics. But do you ever have the awkward thing where you go, right, what size are you? And they're a size 10, 12, 14, 16, all the way up to 24 we go up to. And I don't mind what size they are. I cover everything. We keep them all in stock. And they go, I'm a size 10. Right. And I go, this is awkward. Right, here you go. Here's a size 12. And clearly we can't move our arms in a size 12. And then we push up to 14. And I normally ask them to go 2 sizes above what they think they are. And yesterday it was 3. And they are true. I think they're true to size. It's super awkward with uniforms though, isn't it? And can you imagine if you had to order them in and somebody goes, I'm a size 10, and I'm going, here's the size 10, and obviously it's now going to take me another 4 days to order in a size 16, or we might go through that. How do people cope unless you've got a stock of uniforms? Because I'm not saying they buy.
No, we have a stock of them, thankfully, and we're the same. But we just explain it to them and say, what dress size do you wear? Okay, well, you'll need to go at least 2 sizes up because they're not generous. And we just say it like that, and they're like, then it's the uniform's fault rather than
it's always the uniform's fault.
The size. And also we say, look, you want it to be a little bit roomy. Let's say the example of they tell you they're a size 10, you give them a size 14 and that still doesn't fit. You can go, oh, well, we need it to be a bit roomy, so let's go 1 size up. But don't worry, everybody has to wear a bigger size.
Yeah, I normally get them to swing their arms. Like, if you can swing your arms, I am like, look, I don't care about what size it says. I just need you to be comfortable. And once they've been issued it, it's fine because they never think about it
again.
They
get over it then, don't they? Yeah, no, it's fine. And, obviously, there can be a cost if they don't come back after their first day with their uniforms. What do you do then?
Okay, so probably similar to you. So we keep a deposit for the uniform. So I think it's £25 for a basic uniform. If they've got the full uniform, it runs into hundreds. But there's a deposit and they will get paid for every moment they do. But say they earn, I don't know, £40 in their first day. I don't know how much they earn. Then we'll keep £25. They'll get paid 15, and upon receipt of the uniform, we will release the next 25, or whatever it is we keep, which relates exactly to the uniform.
Yeah.
Is that what you do?
No, we don't actually take a deposit. We worry about minimum wage when it comes to taking things.
So we don't take a deposit. The final paycheck, we will deduct a deposit upon return the uniform. So we don't ever keep money off them.
Perfect.
If, for example, they left after one day, they paid a week later, and we will say, look, we will keep £25 out of your final pay packet
until we get that back. Yeah. Perfect. What we actually do, because we have obviously quite a stock of uniform, but we have some uniform that's sort of not quite as nice as the rest, so a little bit more secondhand than some of the other stuff. So we'll often just give them one of those for their first day, just in case, and then they get the new stuff when they come back.
I can't remember your uniform, but do you have buttons on yours?
No, ours is now a zip one. It's a tunic, but it's got the hidden zip inside. Works much better than the buttons, because the buttons tend to pop off.
The buttons can be really cheap, so it's changing. If you're going to wear tunics, sometimes the zips are like £25, £27.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
Which I love. Whereas the button ones you can get for like 14, 15. But then I find, so I go to like kids' birthday parties where you're stuck at soft play. It's my idea of hell, being stuck at soft play. And they're noisy, so I will take a pile of uniforms where they need the buttons.
And sew the buttons.
I sit there and sew.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. we'll stick with the zips. But it's a cost, isn't it? And how many do you give them? If they work 5 days a week, do they get 5 uniforms, or do they get 3 or 2? Yeah, we give them 2 or 3. Yeah, 3 usually.
4 days, 2. Do you think that's stingy? Should they up it?
No, 4 days they get 2. Yeah, because you only work 4 days a week, don't you? So yeah, 2 is reasonable.
And a lot of them wear tops underneath.
Yeah. So, and ours, I don't know what, I mean, yours are probably very similar to ours. They wash and dry so easily. So yeah, they're quite good.
And you don't have to iron them.
Cloth washing. What do you do about cloth washing? Do you wash all the cloths for your team?
Yes, we have basically, it was a commercial laundry downstairs. We don't use it as commercial laundry because we're so busy with our own cloth. So we get through, if you think 12 teams that are out, and they each have, we count odd cloths, which is quite embarrassing, but we do that. So 12 teams, let's say they have 90 cloths. That's over 1,000 cloths a day to be washed. So, I mean, that's 3 washers and say 2, no, it's actually only 100 go in a washer at once. So that's 12 washers a day, and we've got 3 washers and dryers. I mean, that's 4 batches going through the day. So that's why we don't wash customers anymore. And these are big washers. They're 11 kilogram washers. 11?
Yeah, we've got 3 washers and 2 dryers. But to start with, I washed the cloths for my team at home. And we got to the point where we were doing, I think, a couple of loads a day and a tumble drying. And we were like, we toyed with the idea of getting a second washing machine. But I had a conversation with my husband, who's quite analytical, like your husband is as well. And he said, well, unless we're using the washing machine 24 hours a day, we don't need 2 washing machines. So I was like, well, sort of kind of get it. And we were managing. But then it was a relief when we then got the offices and moved the washing machine and tumble dryer to there. But sometimes, that's a big commitment, isn't it, to be washing your team's cloths? A lot of businesses, their team wash the cloths. You could pay them a supplement to wash the cloths for you. There's a lot less running around after them. You've got to think about these things that, depending on where your business is at, the decision you make on whether you wash your team's cloths or not, it's got to be related to where your business is at and whether you've got a base, whether you're out cleaning all day. You don't want to then come back and wash everybody's cloths. So it's good for us to be washing our team's cloths, but I'm not sure it's right for every business.
And the cost. So I actually did the Solo Cleaner spreadsheet where we calculated this out. So you can go on, it's in our free resources available to everyone. You can go on the DCBM website and you put in all your costs and it'll work out how much you earn per hour and your overall costs. And when I created that 4 or 5 years ago, the cost of a load of washing in a washing machine was 20p. The cost of a tumble drying batch was 60p. What are we on, triple that now?
Mm.
Because it's electricity, isn't it? So, I mean, you're looking at a wash costing you 60p and a dry £1.80. Surely it's not that much. Or say 150 or something, which means it's costing you £2 a load. Now, the thing with giving that to your staff to do, that's all very well, but one of my teams of 2 is going through a load effectively a day. Then you kind of go, well, they've then got to do it in the evening. So you're going to pay their time. And actually, if you then start giving them loads of washing to do, they then won't want to use as many cloths because they don't want to do the washing, even if you pay them. So then they use less cloths. And we all know if they use less cloths, then the whole thing starts to go down the pan.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely something that has to be factored in, and say we always did it for them, and we always have done, and it's never been an issue. But you do have to really consider it. Have you got the capacity at home to be washing their cloths?
Yeah, or disposable.
Yeah, from a green eco point of view, disposable, and actually most of them are just not very effective, are they?
No, people use disposable on the toilets. That can work.
Yeah.
But then you try that where you've got a crusty. God, we're all cleaners here. You get that crusty bit.
We know there's horrible things in toilets. Yeah,
I don't need to tell you, do I? You don't like these conversations. Anyway, yeah. So cloths is always a controversial point. If this comes up on the groups, lots of different opinions. And some people, and I quite like this idea, the customer provides and washes their own cloths. Now, if electricity is going to get more and more and more expensive, which it's just been capped for businesses today, I heard on the news it's been capped for businesses, which I'm pretty chuffed with. But if it gets more expensive, just like we shift the cost of the electricity for the vacuum, should customers wash their own clothes?
Yeah, and that's the thing. The thing with any of these costs is you've just got to kind of go, okay, how much is that going to cost me? Is that going to work for my business as it grows? Is there another way of doing it? And there's no right or wrong. You've got to just pick the right way for your business, haven't you? And your profit margins.
And if you've got no control and you cannot wash the cleaners' cloths and they are not being reliable, you must have done this at some point. Somebody's left a bag of dirty cloths in their car over the weekend.
Rank.
And then you're like, oh gosh, yeah, we've all done that. But anyway, should we move off cloths, Diane?
Yeah, let's move off cloths. So the only other sort of main sort of cost really of employing is, are you going to provide them with all the equipment that they need? That can be expensive. We worked out that a new starter gets £400 worth of equipment and uniform. And
do you issue it to each one individually?
Yeah.
So my vacuums cost that alone.
Yeah.
So
well, we just use Henry's, so they're thankfully relatively cheap. But
yeah, Sebos are slightly more expensive. Awesome, but yeah, I mean the cost of them by the time we use expensive everything. So we don't send them home. We keep them all in stock. We do everything from cutting the hairs off the bottom of the vacuum roller thingy.
Yeah.
If you're going to invest the kind of money we invest in equipment, you've then got to be prepared
you want to be managing it. Absolutely. Yeah. And we just look at it as a sunk cost. We expect to get it back, but it's just part of the cost of, for us, setting somebody up to start with us, because all our team work solo once they've done their training. So yeah, so it's an expense.
So I'm just trying to think of the expenses. So even if you gave them a bag of cloths, so if you gave them 50 cloths, what are they now? They're still about 80 odd p a cloth, aren't they? I
think ours, because we buy them in such bulk, I think they work out about 50p, but 50 or 60 pence. They're not cheap.
Diane, they've gone up recently quite a lot. I don't think you're going to get much for under 80p at the moment. So a bag of 50 cloths, that's 40 quid. Your mop and bucket, even if you buy leader, cheap one, easily, you've got to have multiple mop heads.
Yeah.
Got to be not
all adds up. Yeah. Henry. So even with our cheap £100 Hoover, it's still £400.
You try getting a Henry for £100 now. Have you been buying?
No, they're like 120 at the moment, I think, aren't they?
I think they're about 140 in Tesco. So I think you might need to rethink. 400 quid isn't going to get you very far. But again, that's what you'd expect them to buy. But then you look at, if we compare it to self-employed, and people are going, well, I can pay my employed, £9.50, and I'm paying my self-employed £11. And I'm going, you and I both know a full equipment kit costs £400. How are the self-employed people funding this £400 plus insurance? I do think that there are some self-employed cleaners that are dramatically underpaid.
Yeah, definitely. And if they realise, then or maybe they do realise, and that's why they're not necessarily as reliable as people hope.
Just because they realise that it's not worth the money?
Well, I think, maybe they just think, actually, this is really hard work and I'm not seeing much from it.
No, it's a lot of work and you have a lot of hidden costs. And self-employed cleaners, this isn't just for business owners, this is self-employed cleaners incur all of, well, not all of these costs, but the equipment.
Perhaps not the training, but the breakages, the recleans, the uniform, the equipment, the cloth washing, all of that is, and also, of course, you need a holiday as well. So you should be, making sure that you've got some allowance for you to have the 5.6 weeks or whatever it is, 28 days holiday like everybody else.
Yeah, 5.6 weeks, Diane. I think you get a bit more than
28 days. I get more holiday than that, but
The point is, it is scarily expensive when you look at all of these things, but none of them are unexpected. And the reality is, we talked about a £400 kit, but actually, this is where it comes into thinking about it. If you've got a cleaner that works 3 hours a week, it's not worth it. It is absolutely not worth it. You would have to charge so much to justify the expense of having that person. So again, we look at this and we have minimum, they have to work a minimum of 16 hours a week to justify even having them on our books.
Yeah.
And to have them engaged in actually being part of the company. So I sometimes wonder, when you look at some of these models, actually is the reason that the business owners are getting so frustrated that they're not doing enough work to justify, if you're making £1 or £2 an hour and you've got all these hidden costs coming out of that, it's not covering it.
Yeah. And that's why it comes as a surprise sometimes when a business isn't making money. So, obviously, we're talking about the cost of living crisis and making more money in your business. Managing these costs and understanding them is going to make you more money, because you're going to make decisions based on real numbers. And like you said, there's no point having somebody on 3 hours a week with £400 worth of equipment. It's just not worth it. Our minimum is 12 hours, but, have a minimum. You need them to be working for you to justify it.
Yeah. And the point about all these hidden costs, it's quite interesting when people talk to accountants. And again, you must have spoken to a lot of people, and the accountants go, you can't get past the VAT threshold. You can't do this. You can't charge more than £20 an hour. Your business isn't viable. And the advice that people are being given of really a lot of accountants, it's brutal, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I can understand why.
Yeah, because they're only looking at the numbers, which really that's what business is mostly about. Yes, it's about people and all those sort of nice things, but it also comes down to the business model that you're running. Is it worth it? And part of getting through this cost of living crisis is really taking a hard look at your business and deciding whether it serves its purpose and what changes you need to make sure it does.
And let's just end on a positive, because the nice thing, okay, we've not talked about this, the nice thing about a domestic cleaning business is it is scalable.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying it's easy, because it's not easy, but it is scalable. And whereas other ones like carpet cleaning or maybe some of the others, you may struggle to scale, it is infinitely scalable in the domestic cleaning industry. And your profit margins grow exponentially. So if you are making, I don't know what you'd make off 8 staff, £20,000 a year, say, going from 8 to 16, you don't go from 20 to 40,000. You should be going from 20 to 50,000, and going from 16 to 32. You're not going up to 100,000. You're going up to £150,000 profit. In theory. I mean, you've got to keep it.
And you're right there. That's one of the best things. Well, there's several best things about domestic cleaning as a business. Is first of all, it's repeat business. It's relatively easy to train people to do the job, and it kind of fits around your life as well.
Yeah.
And also you're not constantly having to keep buying new customers. Repeat business. It's so important. And because carpet cleaning is great, but you're booked out 3 weeks in advance. Whereas we sign a customer and they're ours pretty much for the next however many years, as long as we don't mess up.
But you've got a customer base that know you, trust you, and like you. If you want to offer the additional services, so your carpet cleaning, your ovens, hoarding, a bit of biohazard if you want to do a bit of that, you've got a customer base. So domestic is the absolute basic. It prepares you for everything, and you will make more money because they will automatically come to you. How many people are doing driveways, outside window cleaning? You can take a cut off other people delivering.
So many add-ons. Yeah.
So I think domestic is awesome, but you've got to get the basics right.
Yeah, and hopefully we're here to help. So if you're enjoying the podcast.
So yeah, loads of resources available in the DCBM. We talk about this all the time. I think a lot of people will find this one a little bit negative. No one likes talking about costs, but hopefully if we have made sure that people set up their business right, then that's kind of our job done, isn't it?
Absolutely. See you on the next one.